let's get started with today's story. It all started on a Thursday night. I was sitting in the living room with Courtney, my wife of 5 years, when she said something that immediately made me uneasy. "Matthew, I need to tell you something," Courtney said, her voice quiet, almost unsure. It was late, way too late to be having a serious conversation. But I could tell by the way she was looking at me, her eyes soft yet troubled, that this wasn't going to be one of those nights we'd just let slide. "Courtney," I said, trying to keep the concern out of my voice, "what's going on? You're scaring me." She took a deep breath like she was trying to gather her thoughts. "It's about Jason." My stomach dropped and I felt a tight knot in my chest. Jason was Courtney's ex-husband. I knew they had a history, but I never expected to be dragged into it this way. Jason and I had met only once a few years ago. He was a wildly successful guy, earning more than I could even wrap my head around. And during their marriage, he'd lavished Courtney with expensive gifts. But there was something about him I couldn't shake, the way he seemed to still have a hold on her. "What about Jason?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She hesitated for a second, then spoke up, her words rushed. I saw him today, and then he called me afterward. He wants to see me again." My chest tightened. I fought to keep my emotions in check, but I could feel the bitterness creeping in. "Why would you see him, Courtney?" I asked, my words coming out sharper than I meant. Her eyes widened a little, but she didn't look away. "I don't want anything from him, Matthew, I swear. But he's been reaching out a lot lately. And I just—" "Courtney, why didn't you tell me this earlier?" I interrupted, my chest tightening. "You know how I feel about him." "I know," she said quietly, her voice cracking. "But I didn't want to upset you. I thought it would just blow over." "Did it blow over?" I asked, my tone softer now. "No," she admitted, shaking her head. "It didn't." I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything she'd just said. It felt like I was hit by a freight train. My mind raced, but I was trying not to show it. "So what now?" I'm not sure," she said, her voice trailing off. There was a pause. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, and it made me feel even more uneasy. She'd always been open with me, so why was she acting so distant now? Why didn't she tell me about Jason reaching out sooner? "I just don't know what to do, Matthew," she said, her eyes finally meeting mine. "I'm not going back to him, but I can't shake the feeling that he's not going to leave me alone." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "So, what do you want me to do?" Courtney bit her lip, looking down at her hands. "I don't know, but I need you to trust me. I don't want anything to do with Jason. You have to believe that." I wanted to believe her, I really did. But something in the pit of my stomach told me that this wasn't just some harmless conversation. There was more to it, and I didn't know if I was ready to find out. Over the next couple of days, my suspicions continued to grow, small signs feeding into my unease. And then, an argument erupted between us, one that, as it turned out, changed everything. I got home one evening after a long, tense day at work. I just wanted a nice homemade dinner and a chance to relax. But when I walked in, I saw Courtney sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, with takeout containers spread out on the counter again. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "You know," I began, my voice weary, "I'd really appreciate it if you could actually cook dinner once in a while." Courtney didn't even look up. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry, I was just busy." "Busy?" I echoed, my voice sharper than I intended. "Busy doing what? Scrolling through Instagram? Watching reality TV? You've been home all day." She finally glanced up at me, setting her phone down. I was researching new interior design ideas for the living room." "Right," I said, sarcasm dripping from my words. "Because that's clearly more important than, I don't know, feeding your husband after a long day at work." The room felt colder, even though the temperature hadn't changed. Courtney straightened in her chair, her voice defensive. "You know, Matthew, I work too. I work very hard at keeping this house running smoothly. I make sure you always have clean clothes, a nice home to come to." I couldn't stop the scoff that escaped my mouth. Keeping the house running smoothly? By what? By ordering takeout every other night and leaving the dishes piled up in the sink? Her eyes narrowed, her voice rising. "Don't be ridiculous. I do more than just sit around all day. I take care of you. I make sure you look good. I keep you happy." "You keep me happy?" I asked, bitter laughter slipping out. "By constantly reminding me how much money I make and how I should be grateful for every crumb I get?" Her face hardened. "You know, if you made as much money as Jason, I wouldn't have to worry about cooking dinner." "Wow," I said, leaning back in my chair and crossing my arms. "You really went there, huh?" "Jason. Again." Courtney's expression faltered for a split second before she regained her composure. "I didn't mean it like that." "Of course you didn't," I said, the sarcasm sharp in my voice. "It just slipped out, right? Like it always does whenever we have a fight. Somehow Jason always makes an appearance like he's still living here rent-free." "Don't twist my words, Matthew," she shot back, her voice defensive. "You know I didn't mean it like that." "Didn't you?" I asked, sitting up straighter, the bitterness clawing its way out of me. "Because that's exactly what it sounds like. Every time we argue, you bring up Jason, like some kind of measuring stick for how I'm failing as a husband." Courtney stood abruptly, crossing her arms over her chest. "I never said you were failing." "You don't have to say it," I snapped. "It's always there, Courtney. Every little comment about how he used to buy you expensive jewelry or how he had a high six-figure salary. And now this? Telling me I don't make enough for you to bother cooking dinner? Do you even hear yourself?" She opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it again, seemingly at a loss for words. For a brief moment her gaze softened, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she realized how hurtful her words had been. But then her defenses went back up. "You're overreacting," she said, her tone dismissive. "I was frustrated, that's all. You're the one who came home grumpy, picking a fight over dinner." "I'm overreacting?" I countered, my voice rising. "I work long hours every day so you can have everything, and when I get home I expect a nice homemade dinner, not takeout." The tension in the room felt suffocating, as though everything that had been left unsaid for so long was suddenly bubbling to the surface. The evening wore on, and we barely exchanged another word. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to fight. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stuck, caught in a loop we couldn't escape from. There were cracks in our marriage, ones we hadn't noticed until they had already begun to widen. Courtney retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her, and I sat there, staring at the kitchen counter. It wasn't just about the lack of dinner, of course. It was everything else that had led to this moment. Everything that had been left unsaid, and everything that we kept trying to sweep under the rug. The taste of bitterness filled my mouth as I sat there alone. What were we really fighting for anymore? The next morning I woke up to an empty bed. Courtney was gone. Usually she'd be downstairs making coffee, humming a cheerful tune. But today there was only silence, a deafening silence that mirrored the emptiness I felt inside. I went downstairs and found a note on the kitchen table, scrawled in her hurried handwriting. "I'm sorry. I'll be back late. C." Late? What did that even mean? Was she going to stay at her sister's? The thought sent a jolt of icy dread through me. I spent the day in a haze, the office a blur of meaningless meetings and unanswered emails. My mind kept drifting back to the fight, replaying every hurtful word, every bitter accusation. When I finally got home, the house was dark. Courtney was nowhere to be found. I called her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic began to set in. Where had she gone? Was she all right? Then I thought maybe she had gone to her parents' house. I called them, but they hadn't heard from her either. Hours passed, each one more agonizing than the last. I paced the living room, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Finally, around midnight, my phone rang. It was Courtney. My initial relief quickly turned to anger when I heard the tremor in her voice. "Matthew," she whispered, "I'm so sorry. I went for a walk. I needed to clear my head." "Where were you?" I demanded, my voice harsh. I was really worried. I just needed some time alone," she mumbled. "I didn't mean to worry you." "You didn't mean to?" I scoffed. "You left without a word, Courtney." There was a pause on the other end of the line before she spoke again. "I'll be home soon," she said, her voice sharp. I didn't respond, and the line went quiet. I hung up, feeling a mix of frustration and confusion. 30 minutes later, the sound of the front door opening pulled my attention, Courtney walked in, her eyes avoiding mine. "I'm going to stay at my sister's for a few days," she said, her tone distant. "I just need some space to think." I stared at her, unable to find the words. She started packing her things, clothes, toiletries, moving slowly, methodically, as if this was all normal. "When will you be back?" I finally asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "I don't know," she replied, zipping up a suitcase. "I just need some time." Without another word, she grabbed her bag, walked to the door, and left. The next couple of days were suffocatingly quiet. We barely spoke. There were no calls, no messages, just a hollow silence hanging between us. I tried to focus on work, but the nagging feeling in the back of my mind refused to let go. Something wasn't right. Then, on the third day, I was at work when my co-worker and good friend Alex stopped by my desk. He looked around nervously before speaking in a low voice. "Matthew, I need to tell you something," he said, his face serious. "I saw Courtney the other night." I felt my stomach tighten. "Where?" "She was at a bar, downtown, with another guy," he explained. "I don't think anything happened between them, but they were definitely close, talking, laughing, and then they left together, hugging each other as they walked out." I tried to stay calm, but my heart started pounding in my chest. "Who was this guy?" I asked, barely able to speak. Alex described him, and I instantly realized it was Jason. He'd been messaging her over the past few days, but she insisted she had no interest in him anymore and didn't want to meet him. But, as it seemed, she still had. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on, so I made the decision to hire a private investigator. I told him exactly what I needed. Follow her, wherever she goes. The very next day, the investigator reported back. Courtney had gone to dinner with Jason, and they were close. Too close. After the meal, they had driven together to Jason's house. They got out of the car, and as they stood on the sidewalk, they kissed before heading inside. The investigator had taken photos, clear, undeniable evidence. When he showed them to me, it felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I stared at the images, unable to process what I was seeing. I couldn't believe it. Courtney was cheating on me with her ex-husband. The next morning, I went straight to a lawyer. I needed to take action, to make this final. My marriage was over. She had betrayed me, and with her ex-husband no less. I didn't even need to hear her side of the story. The truth was right in front of me, captured in those photos. Divorce papers were drawn up before noon. Later that day, I drove to Courtney's sister's house, the photos of her and Jason clenched tightly in my hand. When I walked in, her sister's confused look didn't stop me. "Where is she?" I demanded. Her sister hesitated. "What's going on, Matthew?" Courtney walked into the room, her expression guarded. "What's wrong?" I slammed the photos down on the table, pointing at them. "This," I said. "This is what's going on." She froze, her face pale as she recognized the images. "Matthew, But I cut her off. "So this is the time and space you needed, huh?" "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just confused," she said. "Confused?" I echoed. "By running to your ex-husband? This is how you handle it?" "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "Sorry doesn't fix this. You've been cheating on me with him, Courtney. I can't keep doing this." I took a deep breath, the anger simmering down. "I'm done. I've already filed for divorce. This is over." Courtney's eyes filled with panic. "I'm sorry, Matthew, please don't leave me." But I didn't respond. I turned and left without another word. The divorce was finalized quickly. Courtney moved in with her sister, hoping to rekindle things with Jason now that she was single. But Jason wasn't interested in starting a relationship with her again. He only wanted something casual. Realizing she had lost everything, Courtney came back to me, asking for forgiveness. "I made a mistake," she said, tears in her eyes. "Please, Matthew, can we start over?" But I had already moved on. "I've made peace with what happened, Courtney," I told her. "But I can't go back. I deserve better." She left, and with her the last pieces of our broken marriage. I had finally closed the door on that chapter, ready to embrace the future. Thank you for watching.